Welcome to In the Lab, a podcast from Luminate, the leading provider of data and insights for the entertainment industry. I'm Andrew Wallenstein, Chief Media Analyst at Luminate Intelligence. Each episode, we'll be talking with distinguished guests from all over the business that have one thing in common: data drives their decision-making. And that theme is central to these conversations. But this podcast is more than just talk. For those watching In the Lab on YouTube, you could look at the charts that we're talking about on video. And if you're listening on an audio platform, that's fine too. On this week's episode, I sit down with Hernan Lopez, founder of the management consultancy Owlin Company, which guides any company looking to make it in the attention economy. But he's not just a great thinker, he's a true doer too, with the track record to prove it. Lopez was the founder of the pioneering podcast company Wondery, which he sold to Amazon in 2021. And he also ran Fox International Channels before that, a $3 billion business that was later absorbed by Disney. In this episode, Lopez addresses the challenges presented to streaming services facing the mobile world. We think you'll enjoy the conversation. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So I wanted to talk to you about a question you've been wrestling with on behalf of your clients in the streaming video space, something you've come armed with some data slides we'll reference in the course of the conversation in service of a pretty profound business question. What, if anything, is the opportunity for the video streamers in mobile, a domain that's seemingly owned by the social media giants like TikTok or YouTube or those owned by Meta? What brought you to that question? Let's start there.
It's actually a question that we've been obsessed with for 10 years, all the way since I was back at Fox. And I kept telling my colleagues that we were trained and we have built our businesses on big movies for big screens and big television shows for television screens, but we were not creating content that was originally and natively made for the personal screen.
So you were really taken in by this idea of the mobile marketplace, and it sounds like you're still there. How big a market here?
I was fascinated by this idea that still, after I sold Wondery and took a break to then start Owlin Company, most of the streaming industry had continued to be concentrated on the television screen and had seen mobile as a nice to have, not a must have. And in all that interim time, YouTube, which is probably one of the misunderstood platforms ever created at that level of success, have really taken their position of strength in desktops, then dominated mobile, and now are on the way to becoming a significant platform, if not the leading platform in many countries on television sets. And I wonder, what did the data say about what streaming was doing to address the mobile, as I call it, the mobile problem, but also opportunity? Sensor Tower is a company that has tracked time spent, users, in-app purchases for mobile for many years. And they produce a report called the State of Mobile every year. And it said that about 3 trillion hours are spent on social platform per year.
Now, of those 3 trillion hours...
Right, 3 trillion hours. And that includes all social platforms, including YouTube. They actually categorize YouTube with the social platforms, but that also includes Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, obviously, and the social messaging platform, Messenger, WhatsApp, etc. And the trends are different. Social messenger platforms are kind of flat, but social video-based platforms have been going up. When you look at the size of streaming video as we usually relate to, so the Netflixes, the Disney Plus, the Prime Videos, as well as the Tubis and Plutos and Rokus of the world, collectively, all those platforms generate about 69 billion viewing hours per year on mobile.
Wow. I mean,
right? So
when
it's
you think
big
of the difference.
So, right? So That's just a subset, obviously, of the total viewership. Nobody has been able to estimate with a large degree of confidence. My best estimate is that collectively the streaming video industry, ex-YouTube, generates about 600 billion hours. Netflix is about 1/3 of that. They're probably going to release numbers very soon and tell us that they made 200 billion hours in 2024. But the other remarkable side of that story is that YouTube and the social video social platforms in general, have been growing time spent, whereas the premium streaming platform had actually been going backwards in time spent on mobile.
Why is that?
So there's less, right? I have a number of theories. I don't have the data streamer by streamer, although I'm about to get all that information. But I think it's really a function of the fact that YouTube and TikTok have dominated, and Instagram to some extent, because each of them borrowed the success stories of the other one and tried to replicate it. And when they replicated it, they did something better than the other one had done. They have really taken time spent from everybody else on mobile, including premium video, because premium video, if you think about it, has not thought about mobile as I said before, as a must-have. So as a result, it's still serving 25-minute episodes, 1-hour episodes, 2-hour movies. So they don't have really a way for consumers to do what I call come for a minute, stay for an hour. If you're going to engage with Netflix, Disney Plus, pretty much any platform, you need to have 25 minutes to kill. You're not going to do it if you only have a couple of minutes. Whereas the other platforms have excelled at capturing any share of a consumer's available time. If you have a minute, you can go to YouTube. If you have half an hour, you can go to YouTube. If you have 3 hours, you can go to YouTube.
But I want to take you back to that 3 trillion hour figure because I want to clarify something. Does that 3 trillion hours include not just video consumption, but anything you will do on social, whether it's talk to people, scroll through?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct, yes. That's the total time spent on those platforms that Sensor Tower categorizes as social platforms.
So does that also tell us anything about social in general, meaning that the growth there, the 3 trillion there, is about so much more than just the growth of video on those platforms?
I believe what it does tell you is that people are used to coming to all those platforms on a frequent basis. And they're not necessarily coming to Netflix, Disney, et cetera, every day. I mean, the people in YouTube, I believe the last number I saw was 2.5 billion monthly active users, of which 2 billion, 80%, come every day to YouTube. So when you're able to ingrain that kind of a habit into a consumer's day, into the morning, the afternoon, the night, you're much more able to establish yourself as a de facto, the default mode in many consumers. Plus, the other side that we should also acknowledge was that, is that all the platforms on social have most of the viewers coming or users coming from free experiences, right? So YouTube, most famously, Meta has almost no paid experience. They only have very, very small, support for shopping but not subscription. And whereas that's not the only reason why they have such an advantage, because there are free premium video AVOD platforms to be Pluto and the like. But the fact that YouTube has been at it for so long and they have created such an incredible moat puts them in a position to really be the one platform for streamers to defend or to really think about how they sit vis-a-vis their competitive relationship with YouTube.
Yeah, let's look at your YouTube slide. I mean, what's striking here is that YouTube, first of all, you see this growth where it looks like it's quadrupled over the past 7 years.
That's right.
To $4 billion.
That's right.
And they've got a solution on every device. And it was interesting, I think it was last year or maybe earlier this year, where at least in the US alone, TV consumption time surpassed mobile,
right.
which blew my mind.
Right.
It seems like YouTube's dominant on all devices, which I don't know that any other company is strong everywhere. Is there any kind of equivalent?
There isn't. And you can make an argument that sometimes by staying in one platform, you can do a better job at that platform. For instance, Instagram is still to this day only a mobile platform.
Right.
Facebook has mostly a mobile platform, but also is available on desktops. Neither of them have tried to get into television sets, whereas TikTok is already on television sets. What I think makes YouTube so interesting is that having integrated themselves into people's daily routines, and it's not just younger people, as I'm sure we'll talk about later, they have created an algorithm that really knows what you want to do, not what the members of your family want to do / watch. So when my son, who's 14, goes and watches television by himself, most likely he's going to be watching YouTube. When he watches television with us, most likely it's going to be one of the premium streaming services because those are the shows that we watch. But it's very interesting to see how your habits in the morning, your habits in breaks in the day, become your habits with the television set at night.
You drew the comparison between YouTube and what's going on at Meta and TikTok. When you look at, for all the consumption that's going on YouTube, when you compare it to what's going on at Meta and the monetization levels, why is it driving the lowest global revenue per 1,000 engagement hours? What explains that difference when you look at what's going on at Meta, where it's driving the highest without any, TV or original programming? It's interesting, that contrast.
I was also quite fascinated, quite intrigued by how well Meta does at monetizing, especially given that they have no subscription revenue. We've been trained to think that A, television monetization is always higher than mobile, B, that subscription is always higher than advertising, and Meta proves the opposite. It's one of the data points I was most fascinated by when I compare the revenue per 1,000 viewing hours. And let me take a step back and tell you how I arrived at that calculation. I took for the fourth quarter of 2024 the total advertising or advertising plus subscription revenue from the family of apps for Meta. That's essentially Facebook and Instagram, for Netflix as a whole, for Snapchat, for Spotify, and for YouTube. And I divided by the number of viewing hours or engagement hours that they each had, which Spotify is mostly audio. All the other ones are total time spent. I was surprised to see that Meta is by far the highest, although Netflix is a little bit behind, but very close. And that was surprising because we've been trained to assume that television monetization is always higher than mobile monetization. And that's true in some cases, but Meta proves the opposite. We've also been trained to assume that subscription is a better way of monetizing attention than advertising. Again, Meta proves the opposite. And I think the reason why they excel, if you ask them, and based on what they say in earnings call, they'll talk about the granularity and the power of their targeting algorithm and the fact that they have so many small and medium enterprises that do a lot of their spend on Meta and almost nothing else, has essentially allowed them to create a moat that it's not as easy for others to replicate. Whereas on YouTube, a substantial number of the total users and the total time spent is not necessarily monetizable. So when my son watches a YouTuber playing a video game, I can sometimes see him, there'll be 30 minutes and there are no ads, and all that time in the same amount of time, Meta, Facebook, or Instagram will have served you 7 ads that are highly targeted to you.
I wonder, though, looking at that chart where, Netflix is in the mix there with only 7% of their business exposed to ads.
Right.
What's the takeaway, you think, for them?
I think the takeaway is that they have pricing power from the consumer. So they are essentially able to charge a healthy amount from a huge number of consumers around the world. And the ad monetization still lags. So if you look at their yield from advertising tiers versus premium tiers, they're still making more money from premium people. For Hulu, is the opposite, actually. Hulu makes more money from people who pay for less to have no ads, but they allow ad revenue. But I think time will revert that. Over time, Netflix is going to make more money from the ad-supported tiers when they have enough scale and enough experience in the advertising space.
So you've got this slide where you lay out some key points for people, for clients, for anyone who is approaching this space. Particularly, you target the mobile first among the companies that you're talking about. Define for us, first of all, when you're saying mobile first, those are the companies that are the TikToks of the world. And to be mobile first is what exactly?
Is to design your experience thinking first about mobile. And that doesn't mean exclusively about mobile, but Instagram and Snap and Spotify are probably the best examples of mobile-first companies. The whole product thinking was first based on mobile. In some cases, that's where it stayed. Instagram, in some cases, it evolved to televisions, like in the case of YouTube, and Spotify also has listening in other platforms. But it's not only the way the company thinks about it, but the way the experience thinks about it. If you are a premium streaming platform and you're designing a product for mobile, obviously you can tell that the product is adapted for mobile screens and the UX and everything is thought about for smart screen. But at the end of the day, they're still putting 25-minute episodes or 2-hour episodes on a tiny screen that you're forced to turn sideways, which is not a natural way today for people to experience content on their mobile phones.
So you draw this contrast naturally between the so-called mobile first and perhaps companies that you're dealing with out there that are streaming first or TV first.
That's right.
What can those companies do to adapt?
I think they first need to think of mobile as an opportunity as opposed to a nice to have. And I see many reasons why that's going to be the case. The first of all is that they need to respond to the fragmentation of attention. Obviously, there's been so many reports. You have written great reports about how streaming has to fight the fight for attention in so many fronts. And it's difficult to fight when you only have a subset of the product that consumers want. Now, if you ask people at the premium streamers, they'll tell you, well, look, YouTube is a user-generated platform or it's a short-form platform. And in reality, that's a subset of what's on YouTube. I think that YouTube is becoming more and more of a super app. It's becoming an every form app where they have conditioned consumers to expect short-form vertical all the way to 3-hour podcasts. You can put 2-hour movies. You can put a 1-hour show. You can put vertical and horizontal. You can do a how-to video, and you can do an inspirational reel. You can do a sleep video. There's just so many different formats that fit in YouTube, and that, as a result, has given them what I call ideal format flexibility. So the premium streaming platforms, what they need to figure out is how to expand the product definition without confusing the subscribers.
That is a massive challenge.
Right,
I mean,
yes.
To some degree, when I hear you say that, I wonder whether you're asking for the industry to make what some might say is another big mistake, in the sense that you could argue that a lot of these companies already made a mistake by trying to rival Netflix, and they got beaten. And now you're asking Netflix, and perhaps some of these other companies as well, to try to become YouTube and try to super app and try to use your term, expand the product definition, go after short form, which who knows what that even means.
Right.
And they could Quibi themselves trying to do that.
Right. And that's a fair question. That the number one, as you see on my slide, question is, if you're already spending a lot of time and effort defending your main screen, which is that television screen, why waste, quote unquote, your time, effort, energy, resources into trying to go after a screen in which you don't have a key dominance? And I think the main reasons to do that are three, main categories of reason. The first one is generational. The younger consumers start their day on YouTube, and then as they age, and we're already seeing Gen Zs and Gen Ys who have taken their habits to as they age, they're going to be thinking of mobile as the first screen, and what they do on mobile will inform what they do on the television screen. The second one category is technical reasons. When I believe that when you're on mobile, you're always going to be interactive with your own information, your own preferences, your own choices. As a result, the algorithm will get only your signals. You won't get the signals of your family members. So you wouldn't be surprised to hear that YouTube knows you. Netflix knows you very well, but I believe that YouTube knows you better even than Netflix does, because people spend more time with them. There's also the argument that in the future, mobile could become the equivalent of what the set-top box used to be, when more and more people cast from their mobiles to TV screens. In Asia, the consumption of premium video on mobile is a lot bigger than it is in the US. Consumption on mobile in general is a lot bigger than it is in the US. The third reason is competitive. Is one of game theory. Like if you think about how YouTube started on desktop, then dominated mobile, and now is moving to television sets, and is doing a pretty good job over there. And anybody who looks at the gauge as a sense of how strong YouTube is forgetting that on mobile, the lead that YouTube has is substantially bigger in audience than
the gauge, of course, being Nielsen's.
Being Nielsen's gauge, I'm sorry.
Yes.
That's a subset only of TV sets only in the home. But think about how YouTube has moved in the turf of the premium streamers faster than the premium streamers have moved in their direction. So the slide that I have that is provocative, meant to be provocative, is one that says that YouTube is becoming television faster than television can/wants to become YouTube. Television doesn't want to become YouTube, but I think it's going to be forced to create a competition. This is all happening when only YouTube and TikTok are making a concerted effort at going after the television screen. Meta has never done it. But imagine a world in the future where Meta and I also decides to come into the television screen. And then you'll have three scale massive tech players with lots of resources. And I think streamers, I'm not saying that they need to copy YouTube. I'm not saying that they need to become TikTok. Every streamer has their own strengths. Every streamer has assets that in many cases YouTube does not have. News, sports. I can give you, I don't want to give specific examples, but I think every streamer needs to think as to how to become more and how to take a higher share of mind, a higher share of time spent on mobile than they do today.
And you also bring up on this slide that AI has to become part of what you call the personalization advantage. Expand on that.
I think that AI, obviously, is early days for AI, but AI will improve, and this is something that YouTube and Meta are already saying in investor calls, that they improve not only the personalization and how good they are at predicting what you're going to watch. And by the way, that might be true of Netflix and Disney Plus and everybody else. But it would also lower the bar for how difficult it is to create engaging content. And I know that people will cringe when I say that. I'm not in any way suggesting that an AI-generated slop will ever compete with Shogun or Bridgerton. That's not at all. But there will be more and more content on YouTube and on Meta and on TikTok, and that content will get increasingly better. And I think that's something else that will be able to give those three platforms an edge over the premium streamers.
Well, let's close with this. I'm curious whether obviously you're giving this advice, and I'm wondering whether you predict you will see anyone actually follow this advice, because it's, I think, tough love to give. I think you're asking a lot from premium streamers to expand their product definition, but do you think ultimately they're going to do it?
I think a lot of the streamers are doing versions of what I'm talking about. You haven't seen anybody yet announce that they're going to go after short form, but you saw Netflix not that long ago.
Gaming.
Enter gaming. So that's one way of engaging, and Peacock has done the same.
Yes.
Netflix tried Just for Laughs. They abandoned that, but now they're talking reportedly about bringing video podcasts to the platform. There's Disney hired the chief product officer from YouTube, Adam Smith, as CTO and CPO. They have to be thinking. I'm sure they are thinking about it. So I wouldn't be surprised if everything that I'm saying right now is being put in the works by some of the companies, or maybe all the companies.
Well, it feels a little late to the game, but at least they're playing the game. We'll just have to wait and see. But thanks so much, Hernan, for coming in and telling us about this. It's going to be an interesting trend.
Thank you so much for having me.